This video is about why I stopped watching red pill content. If animation is not your thing, please skip to the timestamp as shown on the screen. Thank you for flying with Tantris Humble.
The Matrix is everywhere. It's all around us. Here, even in this room. I imagine right now you must be feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole.
I feel like I just stumbled into a video not getting to the point fast enough. Is this about the red pill or some shit?
I could see it in your eyes. Wait, what? How do you know about the I mean, you have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Can you tell me, Tantris, why are you here?
I wanted to kind of animate myself into the Matrix because I'm doing a video about the red pill. Hey, is this video starting yet? I'm kind of getting bored here.
I've watched you, Tantris. What you can do inside a computer is not normal. What you do is magic.
It's just Adobe Premiere. And by the way, secretly watching men from afar is kind of gay.
I know exactly what you mean. How else would you describe what has been happening to you?
Wait, are you saying I'm gay?
Never mind that. We are trained in this world to accept only what is rational and logical. Do you want to know what it is, Tantris?
Yeah, man, of course I want to know.
Really?
No.
It's that feeling you've had all your life. That feeling that something was wrong with you. You don't know what it is, but it's there. Like a splinter in your mind.
Look, man, if you want to come out, call your mom first. Jeez.
You are a slave, Tantris. And you, like everyone else, was born into bondage. Kept inside a prison that you cannot smell, taste, or touch. A prison for your mind.
Bondage too? Really? Man, I knew that you were weird, but...
Just hold out your hands. This is your last chance. After this, there is no going back.
Which pill starts the video?
The red one, but the blue pills.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about why I stopped watching red pill content. Because I did. And by the way, this has been the most difficult video I've had to make on this channel so far. I've now added to this script 3 times, for fear I'll say something I don't feel is accurate enough to my thoughts. But the goal here is to be honest enough to strike a chord with all of you guys who are gracious enough to have supported me on my journey. However, I find that the longer you obsess about it, the more you look for provocative, stimulating content, which at times can contain ideas that make you act in ways that you wouldn't naturally. And moreover, the issue lies in the fact that most critiques of the red pill come from those who don't truly understand what makes it appealing. My aim is to shed light on why I distance myself from it and to assist other men in finding peace on their journey, should they resonate with similar feelings. Additionally, I've discovered a passion for discussing nerdy topics like movies, video games, books, and art. And for a while I struggled to articulate these observations, but I'll always have a soft spot for the bros who initially came to this channel to talk about their feelings, because that's not going away. I genuinely care about all of you, and hope to share ideas that can improve your lives. Maybe some of you will continue to consume red pill videos, but at the very least, I hope to instill a sense of critique to keep anyone from following or adopting ideas that they probably don't believe in, but don't realize it yet. This has been quite a challenge, not just because of the subject matter, but because I've tried to find a medium between the harsh reality of the dating game that the red pill claims to clarify, and how I've learned to understand it without becoming radicalized, such that I hold a hatred for women, which I don't want to have anything to do with. Red pill content can save lives, and if you've begun watching it for the first time, this video isn't about how you should stay away from the get-go. I think it's almost necessary for deep-thinking people to recognize the mating strategies of the sexes, because it lays down a foundation for what you should look for in a partner, and how you can become the most attractive version of yourself in the search. I say go out, because online apps like Tinder and Bumble have done quite a number on the self-confidence of millions of men in the last decade. Overview! Researchers from Indiana University have revealed that nearly 1 in 3 U.S. men aged 18 to 24 reported no sexual activity in the past year. This generation of sexually frustrated men seems to harbor a significant amount of resentment, and that resentment comes from a fear of not finding a woman to spend your life with. And we all know what Yoda said to Anakin about fear.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
The red pill did help me at some point, but I had to stop, because like all one-size-fits-all solutions to complex problems, eventually you'll find holes in the arguments provided. I guess that makes me purple pill, huh? Oh. This channel started when I was in my red pill phase, when I wanted to connect with the bros. I still do, and I'm noticing an increase in my own happiness now that I've learned what I think I really need to know. Yes, it can be monstrously frustrating when we spend our lives receiving few compliments, being told we have no inherent value, and also that men are trash. It makes sense that it's basically become a meme now that guys always remember compliments they get years afterwards. And standing up against the pervasive culture of hatred towards young men is no small feat and usually risks someone's reputation if they're not careful. Red pillars refer to this as unplugging men from the matrix, and it's dirty work that requires removing the rose-tinted goggles through which we view the world and recognizing that we are, at the core, primitive animals with a wicked nature far from the ideals we'd like to have. And for those new to the red pill, it can quickly become an obsession for a source of revealed truth. Anybody who thinks I'm mocking those who use the concepts to heal past trauma is mistaken. You learn how fucking frustrating it is to be a member of the male species. I'll still be brutally honest with you all. I would just ask that women hear me out and consider the difficulties we have, and maybe have some sympathy beyond the conceptions of the toxic male that you've gotten used to in Hollywood media. I know these people exist, and I don't want to be that, and we'll get to my case for quitting the red pill content later, but ladies, I'd like you to appreciate the fact that you are drowned in male attention all the time. Maybe a lot of it is unwanted, but imagine that all of it just disappeared one day, and that if you ever did want attention from the opposite sex, you had to work for it. And in that work, you'd be called creepy, ugly, needy, and a whole slew of other epithets essentially meant to encourage you to go fuck yourself. Go on Tinder, go on Bumble, anywhere on the internet, and you'll see that women are simply born with a value that men do not have, as they're immediately met with hundreds upon hundreds of matches. But you, my man, you've got to make that value happen. You've got to learn a skill, be creative, prove yourself to Mother Nature that your genetic code is worthy enough for someone to say, you know what, I want this guy's genes to live on. And even if you're good looking, unless you're truly the cream of the crop, the hot man, the top 99%, or at least the top 90%, the sexy guy in the neighborhood, if you will, you'll be lucky to catch even a handful of matches in a few months. Unfair, right? When you're an average man, sometimes it feels like you're constantly being told, albeit indirectly, no one cares about you. I say all of this to reestablish that yes, I have a lot of empathy for people who are interested in watching content that comforts them and speaks to this problem. Why did I stop? You have to be careful going too far down the rabbit hole, where reality may become so distorted that you've forgotten the distinction between thinking over an idea in front of your computer and acting it out in reality. For the newly red-pilled, you'll quickly find that it can become an unhealthy obsession, which hinders your ability to see women as human beings, just as you do your fellow bros. Almost as though they're an alien species you can't understand and must be painstakingly analyzed so as to interact with them. They're hypergamous. They don't share the same brain chemistry. They like people more. You like things more, etc. These are all generalizations, and I'm sure women have a lot to say about us men as well. And I'm fine with that, as long as we stay in good faith. So, is red pill content on the whole bad? No. Is it bad to let the internet completely inform your opinions on the opposite sex and how to interact with multiple complex personalities with one-size-fits-all solutions? Probably. I think there's an undertone the red pill can paint which may help men keep their mental point of origin when dealing with toxic women. But not all women are as bad as they say. Intelligent, empathetic women who will understand your concerns do exist. And arguably, one of the best ways to find them is learning how to get off the internet and start going places where you'll have a chance to practice speaking, be it a club, a pub, a coffee shop, whatever. The ideal place may change with your personality type, and your definition of high quality is probably individual to you. I already can hear people in the comments being like, oh, you can't find high quality women in bars. Most mainstream media will never tell you anything you'll find in this sphere, and it's a damn shame because it feels like an all or nothing strategy. Sometimes it feels like the news just completely ignores some things happening in the real world, and even I'm wondering if the news anchors actually believe what they're saying half the time. Either you're in the manosphere, where you can talk about your problems with the bros, or you're in the normal world, where most of those set ideas are shut out and banned because they're dangerous and can ruin your career. All of this dictated by people who don't have sympathy for what it's like to be a young man now. I just wish there were more who brought up these issues with a modicum of empathy, or even sympathy at the very least. Not to be dark, but if we could mention how men commit suicide due to divorce and not being able to see their children, if we could talk about how both sexes have equal roles in maintaining a society without denigrating each other, I wouldn't feel the need to make a video attempting to mediate people from both aisles. The red pill is entertainment, not education. I think watching videos about the same subject for too long traps you in a loop where you end up searching for more content hoping to quell a craving you have for that which validates your feelings. I did the same thing in college when Jordan Peterson would destroy police-speeching idiots, but after a while, the videos you initially began watching for learning purposes just turned into mindless entertainment. Yeah! Take that, man! You go get him, Jordan! Yeah! Come on! Alright, so I'm over those days because I don't really need to watch videos of people getting owned. Because I know what happens. Some kid has a ridiculous opinion, and then the main character of the video, usually the creator, comes in as an interviewer and makes us all feel better with some demonstration of similar thinking to the audience. And you can find this in not only conservative spheres, but also basically any content supporting any belief system. In the same way you'll find videos of conservatives destroying liberals in debates, you'll find a plethora of videos of the opposite. The point being that the perception of this content depends on your biases, and that the low-quality reaction stuff doesn't really challenge you. It's just entertaining and sits within a range of content that fits your worldview. I'm just here to tell you that the more I watch this kind of media, the more it fed my insecurities and made me feel like crap. Even though towards the beginning it did feel good, but if anything, I'm just here to talk about my relationship with it so that you guys can hopefully get to a place where you can accept intersexual dynamics as they are and move on to focusing on passions and not let the videos take up too much of your time. Whether those passions be video editing, music, sports, take your pick. In all honesty, you could probably say this about the whole internet. A lot of social commentary-based content is reinforcing some kind of worldview, right? I'm not going to get into it today, but the entire reason I watch YouTube is to see nerds talk about things they're passionate about. Just to name a few YouTubers I personally love, take Liam Triforce, a Zelda lover who just delves into Nintendo games and makes you want to sit down with a cup of coffee for an hour. And you can really tell that this guy loves what he's doing and truly cares about the content he makes, with every word being carefully chosen, almost as though you're listening to an audiobook. Moreover, Liam only posts about once a month. I know this has nothing to do with Red Pill content, but I find this older style of YouTube a lot more endearing than making 1,000 videos about how much I resent the modern dating game, how women will never get it, how women are hypergamous, how you need to be a chat, etc., etc. I mean, I understand the arguments quite well, but a lot of it is just, it's not for me anymore. Not the arguments, the content. And I can't stress enough that this is a me thing, not a you thing. Through time, I've come to see it as women are women, men are men, water is wet, and that it'll only make you angry the more time you spend in the manosphere, as though it's best to check it out maybe for a few months, see what it is, but not get trapped therein. And speaking for myself, I want to move on. I will say that, thanks to the Red Pill, I'm a lot more stoic and empathetic towards women's biological clock, and what my nature demands of me if I'm ever going to raise a family. But I'll make a different video about that another time.
The specifics.
Let's start positively. How can it help? Well, first of all, who are these guys I'm name-dropping? The first one that comes to mind would be The Rational Male, run by Rollo Tomasi, a blogger known for speaking about men's struggles with women in the dating game, who got famous for his cutthroat approach to talking about the realities men have to face when in a relationship. You know, he kind of reminds me of Axl Rose a bit, but I'm not throwing shade. Now, I don't resonate with Tomasi on a personal level, and maybe that has to do with the fact that I'm a Nirvana fan, whereas he gives me more late 80s rock vibes. And Axl Rose and Kurt Cobain did hate each other, but he'd probably also be one of those people who give me a pretty scathing critique for liking video games as much as I do. But that's beside the point. He's got some okay advice at times. Tomasi does have a few noteworthy things to speak about, which sounds relatively attractive to men who've had bad experiences in the past. This includes his 9 precepts, or the 9 iron rules of Tomasi, meant to improve the male dating game. On paper, some of them make sense, but like any other human being, I have my disagreements with one-size-fits-all solutions to highly complex problems. So let's take a quick look. A lot of this centers around the idea of fighting what Tomasi calls one-itis, that there's only one girl for you, meaning there's only one woman in the universe who could ever be yours. No one else. That one special person, and you have to find them. Realizing that you might be too attached to someone such that you can no longer act on your own behalf might actually help simps like you and me get away and start placing more focus on their own endeavors, and doing something interesting with their lives. I'm a believer that you can make a relationship work with one person uniquely, if you communicate well. But getting attached to someone such that you can never see yourself leaving the relationship might be a recipe for getting trapped in a toxic one, if you're not careful. It's happened to me where I was afraid of being alone, so I stayed in the bad situation much longer than I should have. So the idea that there's not one special person, but rather a select group of people with the personality profile most suitable to yours is a healthier, more realistic way of conceptualizing the issue. I mean, come on, no one wants to be this guy. Don't leave me! Did you just fucking melt? Other things like don't self-deprecate make sense in that too much of it might affect your self-confidence and even make you look like a fool when you actually want to impress a woman you like. But then there are ones like control the frame of the relationship, another idea Tomasi speaks at length about, which means to control the context, the flow of the conversation, and not let your partner walk all over you. I don't view my girlfriend as a dog meant to be controlled like an animal. Rather, if I disagree with someone, maybe it's best to have an air of confidence, but a relationship goes both ways. And I think any woman would get resentful of being with a man who never let her speak and was treated as a pure subordinate. In other words, rules like this don't work because the complexity of issues like this can't be solved by simplistic precepts such as this one. Another one, developing new relationships over fixing broken ones, seems like a bit of a dodgy strategy in my opinion. If both parties can communicate effectively about what they want and then strive towards a better future even after a period of hardship, then Tomasi's logic is a little flawed. If we gave up on every problem that we had and moved on to new ones expecting not to run into new problems down the line, that's just running away from them. Isn't that what we say? Don't run away from your problems? I mean, don't get me wrong, there are exceptions where no matter how much effort you put forth, there's no reciprocity, in which case you should probably give up and walk away. I have sympathy for that, but I find this logic a little too absolutist, as though you can use it as an excuse to walk away from anybody if you're not getting your way. At the end of the day, the rules of Tomasi basically just tell you to get the hell over yourself and stop putting women on a pedestal so that you can have more control over yourself. And I actually did stop doing that because, it's emotionally draining to be a guy giving your girlfriend everything she wants all the time. And then realizing that, maybe you can tone it back a little bit. I mean, if you hear a lot of these rules once, you're like, oh wow, I never thought about it that way. While a lot of the other podcasting content is the same thing, just in various permutations. After a while, it just feels like you're sulking in your own anger and frustration about issues that you can either accept and move on from or continue to obsess over, such that you start talking about things like looks maxing and mewing and hypergamy, etc. Maybe that's for some people. I honestly find a lot more comfort in placing emphasis on creating things. Working out and taking care of yourself are obviously very important, but I get the impression that this isn't the subculture I'd really find my footing in. Needless to say, I'm just making the argument that I've been a lot happier since I stopped. Moreover, I find that while these ideas hold weight, you can still have a good time with your girlfriend if you find the right person. If you find someone with a high-quality personality who seems to stick by you no matter what over the years, do you need to respect a list of 9 precepts? Or can you stop relying on such a rigid conceptual scheme and instead learn how to actually deal with each situation as a new problem? A list of rules with a low resolution of the greater complexity of the world are far from enough to deal with everyday problems, for example. Just watch this clip of Jordan Peterson, you'll see what I mean.
And so you could say, well, what is that? It's the insufficiency of all potential conceptual schemes. Right. Your conceptual schemes are insufficient to deal with the complexity of the world. It's a permanent problem. So what do? You stop relying on your conceptual schemes. That's part of the answer. You start relying instead on your ability to actively generate conceptual schemes in the face of chaos and malevolence. And so that makes you someone that identifies with your creative capacity, your creative, courageous capacity for articulation and action in the face of the unknown, rather than some formulaic approach to the territory. The idea is that elevates your character to the point where you can withstand tragedy and malevolence without becoming corrupt. And that provides a permanent solution to the problem.
The bad side of the red pill. To add insult to injury during this very lonely time in my life, I was dating my current partner. Well, still am, but she was living in Japan while I was trapped in the depths of the Midwest, and due to the
unspecified virus of unknown origin
restrictions on the Japanese border, I was stuck waiting for the country to open despite technically being employed for 2 years. Initially, I thought I'd be closed for only a short time, but the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, and then those months turned into 2 years. Eventually, by the end of 2021, I was losing my shit from the lack of social interaction and the anticipation of leaving America, all while living on the second floor of my mom's house in the suburbs with no stable employment, basically spending my days writing in a journal, playing guitar, and drinking super cheap Skull vodka afforded by the savings I had accrued in college. I'm embarrassed to say I went through that, but I'm okay now. Honey, are you okay? I'm okay, honestly, sentimental and stuff. Okay, sweetie, I love you. Hey, best, Mom! I love you. Some of the realizations I made during this time transported me back to some traumatic memories. And that's a recipe for resentment. Tell a group of people why they're pissed off with the right tone and name a specific perpetrator. And boom! You get an angry mob commiserating around their trauma. In the same way young men are angry at women, women are angry at men because of insert political buzzword here. At the time, I had my resentment and started resonating with what these guys were saying because I could feel them tapping into my insecurities. They use these buzzwords and phrases like betatization through 1,000 concessions, which in layman's terms means every time you give in to something your girlfriend wants, like could you put the black underwear in the black hamper and white underwear in the white hander, you know, that kind of thing. You're pretty much taking one step closer to being a beta male because you don't own your house, because making compromises in a relationship is just, it's such a bad thing. You should never do that. Man, those poor souls who are communicating with their girlfriends and trying to work out their home. I mean, I guess whatever, if you don't do that, if you don't keep her in your frame, controlling the conversational flow, she'll start cheating on you. Like, look, I think the idea is that you shouldn't be a pushover, but the way some of this is framed is that you should never, ever give in to what your partner wants. And I just don't believe that's how relationships function. It's almost tyrannical. And this is what it started to do to me until I messed up a few times with my girlfriend and realized that I was acting a bit like a psychopath, just out of fear of losing her. Like, just feel it out. It's okay to tell people you love them. Like, you can be nice sometimes, man. Just know what you want and judge from your own gut when you should maybe make a compromise is all I'm saying. Your girlfriend will not cheat on you if she asks you nicely to help her with the laundry every once in a while, or that maybe you should not be a slob when using the kitchen. Is that really a hot take? I mean, I don't think you need a girlfriend to tell you that. But I was watching a lot of this wondering if it could really be beneficial for anybody who acts out these rules. And I learned that a good amount of it just doesn't. The deeper you go inside the rabbit hole, the more you find these very masculine men like Andrew Tate sitting down talking about how women are unfair and that the game is rigged against you, that you have to do XYZ or else you're a beta cuck. And I'm thinking like, geez, I'm not the most masculine guy in the room, but this is almost making me feel uneasy. Like this is a game of comparison as to who's the most fit lady killer in the room. I will admit there are very few spaces where men get to talk about this kind of thing. I just felt like it was a little too much at times. The more you think about your own masculinity, the more you obsess over it and become insecure. If you got a solid moral compass, you should be able to trust your own opinion of yourself and respond to feedback when necessary, right?
The ugly.
While comment sections are not the best source for anyone attempting to gain wisdom about the world, or anything for that matter, they can be a reflection of the community in which you take part. And I observed that while the majority of the comments were simply guys coming together to relate about how their wives may have burned them or that there are indeed many low-quality women out there in the world that we should all avoid, I did get the impression that creating a one-dimensional image of women, meaning that all they think about is money and that they don't care about men, etc., could affect us, such that we don't see any of the benefits that a good woman could actually bring to the table if we were to find her. And like I said earlier, treating things as a case-by-case basis and not as one interconnected thing with no variation in its qualities will bring you better fortune in finding the right person, because there's more variation in personality than I think most red pill creators will ever give them credit for. There are obviously patterns in human behavior you can deal with using scientifically proven methods, but it's not as simple as reducing it down to a low-resolution image and solely referring to that to deal with the XYZ problem. There weren't a lot of them, but I would read comments like this. And yeah, there was a part of me that would laugh or relate to it. However, considering that I actually would like to talk to someone and go on the journey of life together and develop a true relationship, even if 99.9% of women are not for me, I don't want to let the anger and frustration get in the way. You don't have to give people that you don't like attention if you don't want to. Moreover, I also don't condone women calling men trash and shaming them either. I think that's also toxic and something that we should put an end to. Maybe these feelings we have are inevitable. There's guy talk and girl talk, but you can mistakenly give in to your hatred and really let go. You know when Star Wars talks about how the Sith get their power from giving into their emotions to fight, whereas the Jedi get their power from compassion? Or something along those lines? It's kind of like that. The red pill space and the manosphere are a place where men really get out their anger, and I'm not here to tell them it's unjustified. I cannot stress that enough. When I read comments like this, I start feeling a little uncomfortable, because it made me realize the red pill manosphere wasn't exactly the space I was looking for. I was more of a low-key doomer than an angry red piller. I wanted a space where we could chill out and have a good time, but not marinate in our hatred towards the modern societal dynamic we're forced to live through. Or in other words, the whole reason I made this channel was to create a sort of lighthearted space that accepts intersexual dynamics for what they are, but at the same time doesn't wallow in it, which is why I want to stress that the red pill may be a necessary step in becoming a better man in a relationship, because it does teach you that women have a somewhat hypergamous nature and that you should shed the Disney fairy tale ideals of love to be the best version of you, not just for her, but also for yourself. The best phrase from the red pill that I actually still love and tell myself to this day is to chase excellence, not women. And I bet you that even very high quality, intelligent women would agree with that. It tells them that you're not desperate and that you care more about living a great life for life's sake and not just to get a girl, you know? Don't get me wrong, man. When you go on Tinder or dating apps, it's brutal. You spend a few months angry about how a relatively average woman can open up the app and get a bunch of matches, more so than a handsome man who takes very good care of himself. So you feel angry. You want to hear more about it. I was intrigued because not even Jordan Peterson, the internet's dad, would be so unapologetic as to say that women are spoiled and that they get whatever they want, while the rest of the male species suffers in loneliness. I took out my notebook and started learning from them, and thus began my mini journey with the red pill. Don't apologize when you don't have to. Don't capitulate unless necessary. Date multiple girls at the same time, i.e. spinning plates. Don't be emotional, don't be desperate, work out, etc. And if you find a really good girl, don't date multiple girls at the same time. I really don't recommend that. The information as presented by men is generally pretty bleak, and I actually believe a lot of that hopelessness comes from a genuine place of resentment and shouldn't be ignored. If anything, I wish we could solve sexism and have men and women live happily ever after. But fat chance of that, that's not going anywhere. Men and women have existed for thousands of years, as long as we have as a species, of course. So when I realized that even if I know a lot about this, the problem itself will never reach a satisfying solution. So watching red pill content started to feel more and more like a pointless endeavor. Of course, I'm biased towards my own sex. I wanted other men to relate to the same frustrations. But there comes a point when one has to understand that talking about such contentious topics is going to create enemies. And on top of creating enemies, if you don't word yourself the right way, there's a feeling of embarrassment. Now, if there's anything I'll say in favor of red pill content creators, it's that it can show men a different perspective from the man-hating dominant culture we're all currently living. Though as a result of extreme third-wave feminism, this red pill behavior goes both ways. And you eventually realize there are two groups of people trying to win a war of the sexes that just won't go anywhere. And for me, it's important to find the info that most benefits you without wallowing in the anger. To sum it up, I just recommend people who are new to red pill creators try to be aware that some of the ideas are a little unhinged and that they should have a healthy dose of skepticism when hearing them. However, I'm not saying anti-red pillers have it right. I simply stopped watching the content because it wasn't good for my mental health, and I felt that the manosphere had become a little toxic. I've been happier ever since I've been able to accept that men and women have different mating strategies, and thus focused more on having time for myself to make art and do what I love. A good woman will see that. It's just a matter of being awesome and not giving up hope. And as always, thanks for watching.
Stuck in the valley of the rough, swallowed in the gut is mouth.